up until a couple weeks ago, you were the client. And now you've switched over into being the designer. And the big thing that I want you to think about is just doing the content justice and kind of putting your ego aside. And this isn't really in response to anything in particular. It was just a thing I was thinking about today that is like, well, now it's time to edit, and maybe some of these concepts are super obvious, but there's something compelling in them. Don't do the thing of, I have a self-image of myself as a certain kind of designer, therefore I'm not running with that. Like, if the idea is compelling, honor it. And don't run it through this filter of ego and self-image. Let the concepts be what they need to be, and trust that just by virtue of you doing it, it's going to be different than if any other person on the planet had done it. And the other thing is, you're going to do a bunch of stuff. So again, if you do it and it does turn out to be generic and cliche, you've lost a very small chunk of your life, and you have other stuff you're working on. So don't be afraid to run with the idea that seemed too obvious. It might be perfect because it's too obvious. It might be like amazing. The other thing is, you might reinvent that obviousness and do something totally new with it. Like, because if I was in your shoes, circa whenever I went to school, my fucking ego would be running the show at this point. My ego would be like, I'm not doing that. That's too obvious. That's too clear. Blah, 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 blah. And one, I wouldn't have finished it because I was terrible. But two, I probably would have struggled with it because I wasn't letting the thing just unfold the way it needs to be unfold. And I feel like this is one of the few times I get real like airy-fairy like Buddhist about shit. But like, just let the thing do what it wants to do and just kind of like be along for the ride is what I mean to say. Because we have no idea until you make it whether that idea is a cliche or a brilliant reinvention. You know what I mean? So that's just the thing to think about. And I think it's helpful. I don't think it ever stops being true, but one of the things that sucks is the more people that are involved in your creative process, the more all this like talking shuts down what you're allowed to do in any given situation. Because people love to say like brainstorm, like, oh, let's brainstorm. And then when you brainstorm, they don't really mean that they're open to everything, even though they're saying that. And so like suddenly other people's egos start to control what you're allowed to do. And that is really sucky.